This is Tayori Sensei, and I am broadcasting from my usual spot in this old, abandoned, rundown, possibly haunted house that is deep in the mountains of Tohoku. Tonight is a bit cold. It's about 38 degrees Fahrenheit, which is about 3 degrees Celsius. And I'm sitting here broadcasting from this old World War II radio with nothing but a lantern hanging for light. Now, the lantern is only lighting up my little spot, not even the entire room, but just beyond the flame's reach, I can see shadows moving about as if they are just waiting for that light to go out. Or maybe they're just waiting to hear tonight's episode. Maybe that's why they haven't pursued me. That they just let me come in here and tell my stories. So tonight's episode is going to be a special one. And this one will be a little different because this will serve as an episode for both of my podcasts. So normally I start these off with a tale of some yokai or urban legend. And I'm still going to do it, but it's going to be a little different tonight. So my two podcasts, one is my Static Scrolls and Sakura, which is about Japan. And then my other one, Tales from the Morphin Grid, is my Power Rangers podcast. Tonight's topic blends into both. And so maybe you listen to one but not the other, so this will be a mixture of the two. So with my yokai story, if you have watched Super Sentai, and particularly Kyoru Sentai Jurenja, episode 34, there is a moment where Burai, the Dragon Ranger, he sees a baby stroller, just out of control. Not as infamous as the one from season 2 of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, but this baby stroller's out of control, so he throws his Jusoken to stop it. The baby flies up in the air, he jumps up and grabs it, and then suddenly it's not a baby, it's a golem, and the golem just whacks him in the face. So oddly enough, there is a yokai that fits into this. So the yokai is a beautiful woman. She appears as a beautiful woman. And she's holding a baby. And when people approach, they find out that the baby is a trick. And anyone who accepts the baby, who takes the baby, is doomed. So, and that yokai is called the Nureona. And, she represents appearances versus reality. And that kind of fits with the theme of what I will be talking about today. And if you have been keeping up with the latest news in the Sentai world, then you will be aware of the controversy and scandals and everything else that has been going on with the actress Imamori Maya. And she plays the role of Ichikawa Sumino in Number One Sentai Gozyuger. She is Goju Unicorn, the Black Ranger. So when she first came about, she was it was a big deal for a multitude of reasons. Uh, on some For some people, it was a big deal because she was the first Black Ranger ever, and for others, she was a big deal because she was at the time believed to be the first half Filipina. Well, it turns out that there were others before her, particularly Koike Yui, who played Ayam from Kaizoku Sentai Gokaija. She is also um, has some Filipina heritage, but I don't recall if she's half or what. But so she wasn't the first, but it's still people still considered it to be a big deal for them. To each their own. It wasn't a big thing for me. So she gets this role, and everything starts off pretty well. She became a pretty popular character, and even for me, I thought she was very interesting. Um, Beyond her looks, I mean, she's an attractive woman. She's cute. Um, I like her design for her ranger outfit. Um, and then she has a story going on when she's looking for her sister, and she comes across her sister Oto, who uh, appears when they do the Shinkenger uh, tribute, so to speak. Her sister Oto has the Shinkenger Sentai ring, and before I go on with the with everything else, the what I thought was funny was that this was a an episode about Gyaru, and this was a subculture that was big in the late '90s, early 2000s, mid 2000s era. Um, and you can kind of see it's a little exaggerated with how they portray it in the episode, but it gets the gist right. And so Oto is this kind of Gyaru look, and if you've watched Shinkenger, they do all of their abilities writing kanji, and that's how they transform and do everything else. Well, Gyaru's never cared for doing things the right way. They're kind of lazy about things, and so Oto, when she transforms, instead of writing the kanji for fire, she writes hiragana hi, which he is, fire. And I thought that was actually rather, a nice touch. So, uh, then we get more backstory, we get more things going on, and her Sentai ring, if she loses it, then she will pass out, go into a coma, which is what happens at the end of that episode. And so you have this whole bit, and there was this connection between her and Rikuo, the Blue Ranger, Goju Wolf, and so we get this really interesting story going on with her, and as the series progresses, and so she became one of my favorites. I liked her uh, and a few of the other characters, and throughout the fandom, she became quite popular and everything. But towards around the end of summer, I believe, was when things started in real life. Things started kind of getting a bit rocky because there was this basically this glorified supermarket tabloid started releasing these articles about her having or she was having an affair with the suit actor for Goju Wolf, the Red Ranger. So not the actor himself, not the guy who plays Hoeru, not him. It's the actor who wears the suit during a lot of the fight scenes. And this guy is like twice her age and married, and so so this comes out, and people believed it. Some people didn't. Some people were, didn't know one way or the other. And so this tabloid, what the hell is it called? The Weekly Bunshun, I think. I forget the name of it. I don't pay much attention to it because it's just a supermarket tabloid. And now this tabloid, they are hit or miss with their stories. Um, they publish these articles based on circumstantial evidence, nothing concrete. They may look at a picture of a celebrity, of two celebrities standing next to each other, and they write an article saying that these two are secretly in love or something. And there are moments where they get it right. And they did a article about some Japanese actress a few months ago, and about her being in a relationship with somebody else, and they were accurate. They got it right. And because of that accuracy, even though the percentage is low, there are people who still believe them whenever they publish an article. So they published this article about um, Imamori, saying that she's having this affair, and so people were believing this, and then some people, not a lot, although the internet exaggerates things, and uh, so you get this high number of, or what appears to be a high number of people who, saying terrible things about her. There's always going to be people who say terrible things about any and every celebrity. And so Imamori's no different. So people were saying terrible things about her, and then uh, later it came out that apparently she was two-timing her soccer boyfriend, but that was still just another thing that was released by this tabloid. So some people believed it, a lot of people didn't. Uh, so there was no word there was no official release from Toei or Imamori's agency, and which I can understand that, because if the allegations are false, then there's no reason to really give them any attention. There's no reason to set up this big press conference and say, "Hey, this is this is fake." So I didn't think too much about it, and but people still talked about it, and it got to the point where people who supported her were coming up with the idea that it's all about sexism and racism, because Japan is sexist, Japan is racist, and they hate her because she is not full-blooded Japanese. The problem is that is old, antiquated thinking when it comes to Japan. Yes, there are people who are racist. Yes, there are people who are sexist who are from Japan. That is in every single country. Japan is not unique in that. So you get a lot of these people going on about it, saying that this is the reason why they're spreading this. No, it wasn't because of that. They're just a tabloid. So they're dealing with that, and there's no word about it from anybody, and the uh, her agency did say that they would look into the matter, and so they interviewed them, and then it turns out that like Imamori and the soccer player were not even dating. They were friends, but I think they weren't dating or anything. And like, so there was no concrete evidence of anything that happened. And people got suspicious, thinking that the scandal was true because the suit actor stepped down under the pretense of health issues, and that seemed convenient. I think it's just poor timing, but there's no evidence to suggest that the scandal was true anyway. No pictures, nothing. So I think one of the reasons was like he was a suit actor. I think for another, I think Lupin Ranger versus Pato Ranger. I think he was a suit actor for that one, and she liked that one, and so everyone said, "Oh, he's a suit actor for that, so that must be a real connection." Yeah, it's pretty shoddy detective work there. So, so people were going on and on about this, on both sides, saying that she's a terrible person, or no, Japan sucks because of this. And then it seemed to kind of die down just a little bit, at least from what I saw. And then last week, you know, everything blew up because Imamori was fired by her agency for underage drinking. Now, Imamori is 19, and the drinking age in Japan is 20. And her contract states that she shall not engage in illegal activities. Now, for some illegal activities, this will depend on your age. Smoking and drinking is an illegal activity if you are under the age of 20. Other countries, it's 18. Other countries, such as America, is 21. And I saw a lot of people jumping in saying she did nothing wrong, and because the drinking age in other countries is lower, so we think that she did nothing wrong. The problem with that is that that's irrelevant. It doesn't matter what other country age limits are. She's in Japan. She's from Japan. Just because she's half Japanese doesn't mean anything. You know, like it doesn't. You even if you are a foreigner living here in Japan, you abide by the rules here. Like I'm from the States, and if I moved to Japan at the age of 20, I could drink. If I moved to Japan at the age of 19, I could not drink. I still couldn't drink in America. But if I'm from, I think, what, Britain or the Philippines, like they're 18. If I'm 18 drinking over there and then I move to Japan, I can't drink anymore. It doesn't matter. So, so the idea of what it is in your own country, if it's more lax in your own country, that doesn't mean a damn thing in Japan. If you're under the age, you're under the age, regardless of anything else. So people were really up in their own emotions with this whole bit. And it really wasn't helping her in any way because, well, I mean, it's just people on the internet talking, but it doesn't make people like, the people in the middle, uh, who may feel bad about it, about her losing her job, or maybe more rational about it. You want to support her, but then you got her fandom that's almost as bad as the Swifties or even Beyonce's little crew. I forget, I don't know what name they have, but you talk bad about those people and those people come after you. Same thing with Imamori. These people were rabid with their protectiveness of her. And so it can really turn people away from this. Especially if you say that she did nothing wrong. No, she did. She drank, she was under the age. So underage drinking is a crime. And committing a crime breaches the contract. And Japan is big on contracts. Unlike a place like America where you can get a part-time job and you get hired and that's it. There's no contract. In Japan, you get a job working at a movie theater. You have to, sign a contract. And these contracts are basically, just, they state, what you're going to get paid and things like that, but also things not to do that do not hurt the company. And this could be, defacing, the company like verbally, like, or, anything else that could cause problems for the company. And so, and it sets, this contract sets these rules that you must adhere to for the duration of your employment. If you break those rules, a punishment can lead up to firing depending on the severity of it. So, like if you're late for work, that's not really breaching the contract exactly, but like there can be financial penalties depending on what the offense is. But if you are doing something that is an actual crime, then that is enough termination. And I saw a lot of people had a problem with that, but that's just how a lot of Japanese companies operate, especially one that's in the public eye, such as the entertainment industry, like uh, these type of agencies, these idol agencies or these entertainment agencies. So they always have these no illegal activity clauses, and there's public image protection requirements and things like that. So, and for like this, there's an image there, because it is a TV show, it's a kids show. But a lot of yeah, they don't have this concept. They don't understand this concept of these contracts because we don't typically have them for a lot of jobs. So Japan's laws, they govern the Japanese productions. And you got these cultural norms elsewhere, but they're irrelevant, as I was saying before. And you can debate the morality of it until you're blue in the face, but the morality of it is also irrelevant. You know, there are legal requirements that have to be met. Um, so if you want to be angry at somebody, yeah, be angry at her agency if you want to be. If you don't want to be angry at her, although she is the one that committed the crime, she is the one that made the mistake. There has to be a sense of accountability here. She is responsible for her own actions. She is 19 years old. And a lot of people were trying to argue that either A, she's too young to understand, and she drank. And then they would flip around and say, she is an adult and she can do what she wants. If she wants a drink, because she's being stressed out, then she can have a drink. That's not an excuse to drink underage. I understand it, but again, that's not an excuse. And but what you can't have both ways. You can't say she's a child and doesn't understand, or that she's an adult. You can't have both of that. And being stressed out because of the scandal and everything that's going on, that doesn't negate any legalities that come in that uh, are at play here. So there's a lot of bad faith arguments that's going on with this whole thing. Toei was not her employer. She was under contract to do work for Toei, but through her own company. So if something is going on at Toei, it really doesn't matter, and I mean this could be good or bad, because her agency. I keep forgetting the agency's name, like Seiju, I think it's what it's called. So I say agency just for simplicity's sake. Um, so it all goes through her agency. Toei may like her. Toei may say, "Hey, we want you to do every single Sentai from here on out, or every single production that we have." But that's up to her company. It's not up to her. It's not up to Toei. Toei can just request her, and it's up to her agency to deliver on that if they choose to. Um, Now, if you have watched episode 37, so episodes 1 through 36, uh, or when did she first appear? Episode 3 or 4? So she came in a few episodes into the series. That's when the character was introduced. Um, so from that point on to episode 36, that was all before the drinking bit. Episode 37 aired the day after all of this came to light, and Toei had to do damage control and just do a quick job of erasing her completely from the episode. They erased her from the opening, and they did this shoddy job of weird opening that included scenes from the episode. It was terrible. But I understand where they were coming from because it was a last minute thing that they had to do with a release. You know, Gozyuger airs at 9:30 in Japan. So I was on the train around 6:45 or so. So it was less than 12 hours away when I had heard about it. Uh, so I don't know when the news actually broke, but so they had less than a day to get everything going. And so they had to erase her from the episode, cut, edit scenes, like zoom in further to avoid her image, cut a scene shorter so that she doesn't come into the view, um, block her with another body, things like that. Um, and the reason for this was because Toei cannot legally show her once her contract was terminated. That's not Toei's fault. That is just how it works. Everybody was freaking out that Toei was trying to rewrite history, erase her from existence, things like that. No, not really. I mean, at face value, yes, but not. It's because they legally could not show her. So, uh, so yeah, they had to get rid of get rid of her image. They can't use her likeness or anything like that. Um, that's just how things are. Like they do not, and this is the same way with TV Asahi and Bandai. They do not want to have actors or actresses who are not represented by an agency. Um, so she could, in theory, get picked up by another uh, agency and come back to work, for Toei or even Gojuja. But then there's two reasons why this wouldn't happen. Is that I mean, it wouldn't be impossible. It's just highly unlikely considering what had everything just happened. Um, but it also the situation has kind of been, I don't want to say resolved, but uh, patched, I guess is a way of putting it, and I'll explain that in a moment. Uh, so, so that's why she's not in episode 37. She's not going to be in 38 or 39 either. You will see her uh, her ranger outfit. During the fight scenes, you will see Black Goju Unicorn running around fighting, and then you'll hear some lines, but those are done by a new voice actress, so that you will not hear or see Imamori Maya in Gojuja from here on out. Uh, so now the patchwork that I had mentioned was as of a few hours ago, and I learned this when I was on the train again. I get all my news on the train. Uh, is they found a replacement. Now this shocked the hell out of me because they are replacing the actress with somebody else for the same role. Not This isn't like the case of like Bioman where um, the actress who played Yellow 4, um, this isn't the same case where when she left and they brought in a new actress and who was this other character. Um, that's not like that. Like this new actress is coming in to play the character of Ichikawa Sumino. and I was not expecting that. I did not, clearly I did not think that they would go that route. The route I was going with was killing her off because that's actually what they did in Bioman. They killed off the original Bio Yellow 4 and replaced, in like the next episode, they replaced her with a new one. But because the actress was not, had left the show, they killed her during a fight scene. And you never see this actress, you know, in her normal civilian outfit. She's always transformed throughout the entire episode. And she dies, and their funeral for her, she's still in her transformed state. So I thought they were going to do something similar with that by killing her off. Uh, and there was two ways that I thought they were going to do this. They were going to kill her off, but uh, her replacement would be one of two people. And the leading idea amongst the fandom was that it was going to be her sister. Now, because as before, her sister was a ring holder with the Shinkenger ring, and as I said earlier, she had to keep a ring on her, otherwise she'd pass out. And we don't know the full story with everything yet, and she's still in a coma as of right now. Um, so, um, so in my idea was that there'd be this fight scene, and she'd be Sumino would be she'd transform and fight the monster while the building that they're in that also has the comatose body of her sister, um, it would be on fire and or collapsing or whatever, and she's able to get her sister out before the building collapses or explodes. And then we see the next shot, we see her lifeless hand and the unicorn ring disappearing from it. And then it reappears on her sister's hand, and her sister wakes up, thus becoming her replacement. That's how I thought it was going to be. And because the series has already established that's how this works, is that uh, earlier in the series, the Yellow Ranger, um, Goju Tyranno, he lost his ring. So his contract was voided out, and the ring went to somebody else. He gets it back in a couple of episodes, but uh, but there is that possibility. So that's what I thought was going to happen. And then my other idea was that it would go to Bouquet, who is one of the generals for the villains, the Bridians. And the thing is with her is that I know a lot of people, when they think of the villain generals, they think of them as like, this evil, types. Like when you think of like Goldar or Gryffindor from Danger and Power Rangers, and nothing redeeming about them. Like they are just straight up, serving the forces of evil, and that's it. Well, Bouquet is an interesting character. She is a fan favorite, and she's got this cuteness to her, and this almost human side. Like she seems to be pretty friendly with Kumade, and she has a big crush on Kuo, the Blue Ranger. Kumade is the White Ranger, and so like there's something there. Like she fights the Rangers, but she also has a crush on one of them and is pretty friendly with another. In episode 37, she actually returns his lost jacket to him. So my idea was, the setup was the same. Sumino dies in the building, her ring disappears, and then the ring appears on Bouquet's hand. She's startled by this. She doesn't know what to do. She keeps it a secret from everybody. So Fire Candle, Tega June, um, what's the goofy the other guy? Was it was it Sweet Knife? Is that it? Or Shark? No, what the hell's his name? I'm totally blanking on his name now, but like it's some weird name like Sweet Cakes and Silver Knife or Sharpening Knife. God, I'm such a terrible fan. I can't think of their names right off the top of my head now. Yeah, I do all of this off the cuff. I don't have any notes to look at. Although maybe I should invest in some note taking. So so Bouquet gets the ring and she hides it from everybody. And she also recently got a new sister from Tega June, who seems to be a little crazy. Uh, so this would allow Bouquet to transform and kind of help the Gojujas from time to time. And so this would be like how things go for the next several episodes. And because we're only on episode 38 as of right now, that will air tomorrow, my time. And episode 45 ish would be where I would expect this next part to occur, which would be Bouquet's reveal of her being the new Goju unicorn. And like the Brightians have them on the ropes. They're about to beat them down, and then suddenly Bouquet lifts up her hand, revealing a Tega sword, and she holds up the ring, saying "Engage," and she reveals that she is Goju Unicorn. So that was my idea, and I do wish that would have been how it played out, but it didn't. So because they recasted the role, and so now uh, the new actress is Shida Kohaku, and she was the Yellow Ranger, the Oni sister, in Dawn Brothers, Avatar Sentai Dawn Brothers. And this one was from a couple years ago. And so people like her. Uh, they are they're not sure how to feel about her taking on the role because they don't hate her. They like her, but they want to support Maya as well. They don't want to feel like they're betraying Maya, and I get it. I completely understand that. Now, this seems to be there's a lot of parallels here. So this isn't the first time that a Sentai alum has taken on a new character who is also a ranger. Uh, this dates back all the way to the beginning with, you know, in Go Ranger, he meets a Sentai Go Ranger. So the Owl Ranger, he came back in the next year, Jaka as Big One. And then in Battle Fever J, Battle Cossack, the original, the first Battle Cossack, he was Miro Ranger from Go Ranger. And then Battle Kenya from Battle Fever J, he returned the following season as uh, as Denji Blue for Denji Sentai Denji Man. Um, so this has gone on a couple, for several times throughout the entire franchise. Um, Change Pegasus from Changeman. He, a lot of people don't realize this, but he's more famously known as Dragon Ranger from Judanger, the Green Ranger. But he was Change Pegasus. Was he Change Pegasus? Okay, now I gotta look it up. I'm gonna have to edit this part out because I'm gonna have to look it up. Uh, I'm gonna have to question my Sentai knowledge here. Uh, but yeah, Change Pegasus. All right, I had to be sure on that. It's late here, and so Yeah, this has happened many times uh, throughout the whole franchise, and so this seems to be kind of fitting. Um, Although the circumstances are not the same because the other times that like that was the role they came for. This time she's replacing somebody. So that's the really only real difference. And also this ties into kind of Power Rangers with when season two was going on. You know, midway through the season two, you know the you know you had three actors leave the show. So you had Austin St. John, Twee Trang, and Walter Jones leave the show, you know, due to a pay dispute. You know, this is pretty famous throughout the fandom, and then they get replaced. And you know, some people have stated that they stopped watching after that, or that they didn't like the replacements. Me personally, I was not necessarily a fan. I didn't hate them, but they weren't my favorites. Rocky and Adam became some decent characters because uh, they they later went into Zeo the following season or the following series, I should say, um, where they kind of felt like their own characters and not just replacements. Karen Ashley, who played Aisha, she didn't go to Zeo. She had quit before that, so she didn't really feel much more than a Trini replacement, to me anyway. So yeah, there's some parallels, not total complete parallels, but there's some similarities between them with characters being replaced. But in this case, it's more replacing the actress to be the same character rather than bringing in new characters to expand the lore. I am curious what it would have been like had they brought her in to play a different character. Um, that would have been the least likely of the options, um, because then there would have to been a total rewrite of the story. While my ideas would have to include some rewrites, but not so drastic, I don't think. Just because you would have the same characters, um, so because there is some lead in, you could believe that going those routes because of the way the characters are. So hopefully she doesn't get any slack for taking this role, um, because there are people. Imamori Maya still has a lot of fans, who support her, and her fandom is pretty strong, and which I find interesting because she was only in 2/3 of a season, and so it's just interesting. It's not necessarily a bad thing to be a fan of hers, but just as long as they don't get too crazy with it. But there are people who get crazy with their ideas, and I mentioned some of them before, but like they're portraying her. The thing that gets me a lot with this is that they are portraying her to be this infallible victim, and like she made a mistake. Her career is not ended. She made a slight mistake, and underage drinking is a crime, but it's not severely punished, and that's a misconception. Like that's a not a misconception, but it's something that needs to be seen correctly. Like it is a crime. She made the choice, and she has to reap the consequences of that. She has to pay the price. Um, Unfortunately for the fans, that price was losing her job. Some people will comment that it should be those who gave her the alcohol should be punished for it. And the thing is, like, there is that penalty, but it really depends on how she got it. Like, in Japan, it is really easy to get alcohol. They don't card as long as you don't look like a child. Um, and like they have beer vending machines, Now it's not common. I mean, when I used to live in Ibaraki, there was a beer vending machine near my apartment. Um, I go to the convenience all the time. They never card, but I don't look like I'm young anyway. But you know, there's their method of age confirmation is just pressing a button on the screen that says, "Are you 20 years old or above?" And that's all it takes. So you can be an older looking 18-year-old and get it and easily buy a beer from a convenience. So, and that's convenience store, by the way, if you're not familiar with how the Japanese language goes. So yeah, and I've heard people comment about because she's also a model, and you can see her in magazines modeling lingerie and bikinis, stuff like that. And that type is okay as long as you are above 18. There's also no porn for like you can't do porn unless you're 18 or older. Japan has this two steps of adulthood. Like it's not that's not like that's my own way of putting it. So like you graduate at 18, you can do things at 18, um, but other things you can't do, such as drinking and smoking, that's not until 20. You can't get your driver's license in Japan until you're 20 years old. So there's a lot of things that you can do at 18, but you can't do until you're 20. Porn is at 18. Um, Whether you want to make the argument or not that that should be a 20-year-old thing, that's besides the point. So people have this idea that you can do porn at 16 in Japan. Nope, that's illegal. Children who do modeling at an early age, they can't do anything overly sexual either. So like that's no. Um, oh, and I've heard people comment that Kamen Rider Saber's actor was caught smoking. So why wasn't he nailed for it? Well, because he was 24 at the time. So that argument is just false. Um, Also with Sumino, I almost called her Sumide. Sumino's actress Imamori. Um, some people said she was stressed out. I don't remember if I said this earlier because this is going on for about an hour now. This is why they call me Tayori Nai. Um, Stress doesn't justify her actions. So there are other reasons that people have come up with that are disingenuous, that are baseless, that are not even comparable. So, um, so if you are hearing a lot of these rumors, um, or these ideas as to the sexism and racism, etc., take it with a grain of salt, in my opinion, um, because a lot of these people have not been to Japan, or they've been to Japan only traveling around, so they don't really have a full understanding on how life is here, on the inner workings. I'm not going to say that I'm an expert either, but I do have insight on how a lot of these things work because I've been here for quite some time now. So yeah, if they are blaming everybody but Imamori, then their argument is basically automatically gone because she is at fault. She made the mistake. So that's basically all it comes down to. Accountability, asking her for, to be accountable for her actions is not cruelty. It's not victim blaming. Acknowledging her wrongdoings is not hate. You can still support her while acknowledging everything. So, um, now going back to Kohaku, um, I am curious how they're going to handle her introduction. Are they just going to just blindly, just ignore like how because she looks different? I think she's shorter than Imamori too. I'm not sure. But so they're gonna have. I'm curious if they're going to address the differences. Um, they might not. They might just say, "Oh yeah, you're obviously the same," and they don't. They're not going to bring any attention to it. And um, I've seen TV shows where they do similar. They bring attention to such things like um, one example is like Star Trek Deep Space Nine, where they made a uniform change, and the uniform change is obvious, and they've never made such blatant comments before. But Dr. Bashir says he's like, "Hey, do I look good in this uniform?" And it's when they changed from their colored shoulders uniform to their gray shoulders with the colored turtlenecks underneath, the good looking ones that I like. So when they made that change, he brought the audience's attention to the uniform, as if we didn't notice already. Um, are they going to do it that way? Like, oh, hey, you kind of look a little different, or will they do something a little bit uh, in the same idea like what Roseanne used to do? God, I'm going to reveal my age for this, but I grew up watching Roseanne, and Roseanne's a good show. So if you've never watched Roseanne, you should change that part of your life. Um, but one of the characters, Becky, she was played by two different actresses, and it wasn't like she was played by this actress for the first half of the series and then a different one for the second half. No, like they were switching in and out. And so, Sarah Chalk, if you are familiar with Scrubs, the character of Elliot Reed, her actress was Becky in Roseanne, and she was alternating with another actress, and I don't remember the reason why they were alternating, but she'd be there, and then a few episodes later, it'd be the other actress, and then I remember watching one episode where like something was happening, something big, like some party or something, and Roseanne looks at Becky and she's like, "Aren't you glad you're here this week?" And I immediately caught the joke because I knew that this was being played by two different actresses. But if you've only seen that episode, you're not gonna catch it. So I wonder if they're gonna do something like that. Just make some comment in that same vein that will bring attention to why she looks different. And I mean, even in the Power Rangers franchise, Rita in the beginning of Mighty Morphin, they were using the original Bandora, stock footage. So it was using Machiko Soga's face from Zudanger. But then after that, when they didn't have any more Rita original Bandora footage to use, and they kind of needed new footage, they brought in the voice actress for her to play her physically. And of course, there's a big discrepancy on their faces. And the way they worked that was that she got a makeover and basically, de-aged herself, and so now she looks a lot younger. So that's how they explained why Rita looks different for season three. Um, so they might even do that, have some sort of in-universe explanation, or they might just ignore it. I don't know. I am kind of curious, and I'm not gonna lie, there's some excitement there. It's not super exciting because I did like Imamori, but I'm there is a little bit of to see how everything plays out, and I'm curious on how Kohaku will handle this role. Hopefully, she's not going to get any hate for it either. Um, anything else I need? Did I miss? No, I think that's it for this episode that's been going on for over an hour. I did not expect that. I was thinking maybe like a half an hour or something. Nope, I am very unreliable with that, and that is why they call me the Tayori Nai Sensei. Um, so yeah, so this will count as both my Japanese, my Static Scrolls and Sakura podcast, and my Tales from the Morphin Grid podcast. So this will appear in both. So if you are listening to only one of those, you will see why that this is a mixture. Because there are things that I do for one that I don't do for the other. just to fit the style. So that is it for me, and I know I'm forgetting something. I know I am. And as soon as I stop this broadcast, it is going to come to me, but I will just have to bring it up later or forget about it and convince myself that it wasn't important. So, all right. So until my next episode, which Tales from the Morphin Grid, I haven't decided what my next episode's going to be. Maybe season 3 of MMPR or something else. But I do have, my idea for Static Scrolls and Sakura. It's going to be I purposely put it in December because it will be the 110th. Is that right? The 110th anniversary of this event. So I purposely waited until December to do this. So until then,